Today's video is about a little black book that I have, and if you jumped to the same conclusion as my wife and thought to yourself, that hound dog scoundrel, then I'm flattered, but you're overestimating the effect that YouTube internet fame has on members of the opposite sex, or on members of the same sex for that matter. Nope, I don't have that kind of black book, I'm afraid. My black book is a gaming laptop from Venom, and while it is pretty sexy, the closest thing it contains to the phone numbers of members of the opposite sex is a bookmark for livelinks.com. Cooler Masters Case Mod World Series is your opportunity to show off your modding skills and win great prizes. Entries close February 7th, 2015. Click now to learn more. So let's kick things off with a bit of who the devil are these guys about Venom. They're a small Australian gaming laptop company that caught my attention by making some pretty eyebrow-raising claims with respect to the performance and quality of their products. My initial response to their request for a review was a chilly, well, I'm sure it's fine, but frankly, I'm not really sure what someone who isn't a Tier 1 manufacturer can contribute to the category at this point, but they insisted that if I gave it a chance, I would be impressed and sent me this, the Venom Blackbook 15. So what makes a Blackbook special then anyway? Their overall sales aren't large enough for a worldwide exclusive chassis, so, according to Venom anyway, it's the finishing touches, configuring fan behavior, creating the OS image, which they include on a USB drive instead of a hard drive partition. Thank you. Sourcing their own LCD panels, sourcing their own keyboard key switches, sourcing their own memory and drives, and I was skeptical about this one at first, but apparently one advantage of their lower volume requirements is that they can exclusively opt for lower yield, A-grade materials for the construction of their products. And it actually seems to make a difference because the finished product really is unexpectedly nice. There were a lot of ways that a company with the name Venom could have gone overboard on the all-flash, no-dash, gamery look designed to appeal to the demographic that needs to ask their parents for a new gaming machine. But the Blackbook 15 is all business from the outside with a good mix of I/O, including optical out, dedicated headphone and microphone jacks, an SD slot, a SIM slot, unusual here in Canada, 2 USB 3 ports and an Intel Gigabit port on the right, another USB 3 port, HDMI out, and dual mini DisplayPort 1.2 ports, and some ventilation on the left, and a curiously positioned eSATA/USB 3 port and some more ventilation on the back to go along with the power jack. So the overall takeaway, holding it in my hands, is reassuringly premium aluminum unibody construction, stealthy blasted black anodized finish, and, well, horses to spare once you get under the hood, because spec-wise, all current Blackbook 15s have an Intel Core i7-4710HQ quad-core processor, GeForce GTX 970M graphics, a 1TB 2.5-inch hard drive for mass storage, and Windows 8.1. Then there are 3 different tiers to get more or less RAM and SSD space depending on how much you want to pay. I've got the mid-tier one with a 256 gig M.2 SSD and 16 gigs of RAM, but the lowest end one halves that and the highest end one doubles it. But chassis and specs aren't even really what's supposed to be interesting about this thing, so let's get into what that is. Sitting in front of it, the first thing I noticed is the gorgeous 3K 2880 by 1620 Vision IPS matte display. Man, this thing is nice. Deep blacks, vibrant colors, minimal glow, a must if you're gonna run at this resolution without scaling, as expected motion blur for a non-TN panel, and fantastic viewing angles. The next thing I noticed was the OS. And while their Windows image does have a fair bit of stuff installed out of the factory, most of it is what I would classify as useful rather than bloat. There's a Resident Evil 6 benchmark, for example, that they presumably use for validation that everything is working correctly, a screen evaluation utility that I immediately fired up to determine that I have no dead pixels, and that other than a touch of backlight bleed at the top and bottom edges, it looks terrific, Firefox and Chrome browsers, a copy of DivX Player, which isn't my favorite third-party player, but prevented me from ever having to see the horrible modern UI video player, and finally, a copy of Norton Antivirus and Internet Security, which normally I would blast them for, but since they have the consideration to at least include a full year of service rather than some BS trial like the Tier 1 guys are doing these days, I guess we'll call that a draw. Their control center utility is fairly bare bones, but is lightweight and does what I need it to do. There are toggle buttons for most onboard stuff and quick configuration for fan profiles, including the ability to create a custom profile if you wanted to, turn the fan speed way up and overclock the GPU or something. Something I didn't end up playing around with because the stock config had the internals topping out at 70 degrees Celsius while also staying reasonably quiet. I mean, we've got it running full bore right now. And it doesn't have that annoying whine to it that some gaming notebooks do, which I guess leads pretty well into the overall gaming experience. The Blackbook 15 strikes, in my mind, an excellent balance between notebooks that trade away their slimness for being powerful, cool, and quiet like ASUS's G751, and notebooks that trade away their coolness and quietness for being extremely slim and powerful like MSI's GS60 Stealth. This one is equally powerful, but carrying it or using it feels like it's striking more of an even balance between noise, heat, and thickness. Speaking of even balances, the 3K panel is a total of 4.67 megapixels, which is another compromise that I mostly agree with. 4K at 8.25 megapixels would have obviously been too much for this and really any notebook GPU to drive today, and 1080p is decidedly last gen at this point, so I see why they did it. But my complaint here is one for panel makers rather than for Venom, because while the Blackbook's 970M is enough to handle even most AAA games at medium or better at native res, I wish that 1440p notebook displays were available because that would give a little bit more breathing room for future games at native res without running at a lower res and dealing with interpolation. Let's move on to the keyboard now though. Some stuff wasn't too noteworthy. The layout commits no major sins but isn't exceptional, and the backlight is a nice feature but it's not super bright or anything. But the feel of it was pretty unusual. Honestly, a little stiff for my tastes, but given that this is a low-profile notebook keyboard that we're talking about, the tactile feedback is excellent. And while at first I bemoaned the lack of macro keys, Venom includes a utility, even though it is a bit buggy, that allows any key to be rebound with another key or a macro. Not bad. So, conclusion time. Is this notebook good? Yeah, it is. Is it really good? Actually, yeah. Is it the kind of product that I would love to carry around with the fit and finish that's closer to what I'd expect from Apple or Razer than to your typical plastic gaming PC notebook? Yeah. But is it worth the price? Well, that's your call. But with the words Razer and Apple having just rolled off my tongue, I think you already know that the Blackbook 15 is not going to be a bargain basement gaming machine. So ultimately, that call has to be yours. As usual, we'll have links in the video description for price comparison. Guys, thank you for watching. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, leave a comment if your feelings are more complicated than this. As always, there are links in the video description, aside from checking out the price of this, to do other things like give us a monthly contribution if you want us to keep making videos, buy a cool t-shirt like this one if you want us to keep making videos, and change your Amazon bookmark to one with our affiliate code so you can use that to give us a small kickback whenever you buy stuff on Amazon if you want us to keep making videos. And if you don't want us to keep making videos, then don't do any of those things, because then eventually we will have to stop. Thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe. Or don't subscribe if you want us to stop making videos.